Here we go.
Do it.
Okay, cool.
Here we go.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Coffin Talkin', where we unravel the mysteries, embrace the peculiar, and find humor in the unconventional world of funerals and death. I'm your host, Holly. I'm here with Frank.
Hello there.
Hello. How are you
Hi.
doing?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing just fine.
Yeah. How's school going?
School's fine. It's starting to wind down to the end of the semester.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's getting busy. And we have projects in every class. And like I was telling you earlier, I have a class project or a team group project that's due tonight that has not yet been started. So it's one of those weeks.
You have to stop partying. Stop partying so much, Holly.
Oh, gosh. It's just me and Nellie, you know. We throw all these parties and no one comes.
Yeah.
But we still have fun.
And that's fine with Nellie.
Yeah.
She can entertain herself. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, you'll be happy to know that we're throwing up the CT today.
The CT? Christmas tree?
What the? Yes.
What the? Oh my gosh, great. It's finally past Thanksgiving, so.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll put up some additional decorations as well, so.
Yeah.
It'll be a good day. I've got to run to work for a few minutes, but after that, it's all Christmas.
Nice. That's great.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
That's what you love.
Yes. So I have a couple of questions for you today, Holly, before we begin, and a couple of statements. When do you think how old do you think you are on the national average here in the United States when you first experience a death?
Oh, gosh. And how close of a death is this? Is it immediate family or just someone you know?
This is just general death. When you hear of someone that's passed away, that's probably a friend, maybe a relative, a neighbor, you just have heard that someone's passed away.
Oh, geez. I don't know if this is morbid or not. I'm going to say 10.
Oh, my gosh. You're really close. It's actually age 7.
Really?
Yeah, age 7.
Oh, my God.
And so let me ask you this. How old will you be when you experience the death of a parent or a brother or sister?
Oh, gosh.
On the national average. Again, this is average.
National average, right.
Some people can go until the age 30 and not have anything.
Oh, no.
Anything, but what would you say?
See, I was going to say something way past 30, but now I think that's wrong.
It would be wrong.
45 or something. Oh, shoot.
Don't go higher. Don't go higher.
Oh, shoot. Okay, I'm going to say maybe 25 then.
Okay. By the time you graduate from high school, 1 in 12.
1 in 12 have a sibling or parent?
Has had a parent or sibling pass away. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
The statistics are unnerving. But when I first got into the industry, the average was age 21.
Really?
That was the national average. And so it's dropping.
12?
But think about it. Why would it have dropped?
Well, so you said when you got in the industry, so were cars invented then?
No, we just had trucks.
Right. Okay. It was mostly horse-drawn carriage.
Oh my gosh, that's funny. All right, forget the question, Holly.
Forget it. We're done.
Forget it. Yeah. Oh my gosh. And thank you for joining us on today's episode.
No. Oh gosh. No, I'd say drugs. I'd say the spread of drugs, spread of alcohol, drunk driving. All those things that are preventable, but still happen.
Yeah, and I think it's also too because the manner of death has also changed. I think that the majority of deaths right now are happening because of inability to be patient. People are not as patient. They have more access to weaponry. So I think that's part of the problem. That's, I think, why individuals are passing away, or at least you're going to experience some sort of a death prior to the age, just up to the age of graduation.
Right.
One last question. If you were to list 5 things that cause grief in your life, what would they be?
cause grief.
Yeah.
And we're not just talking sadness, because when you say grief, I'm thinking that's a deep sorrow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It can throw.
Um,
Okay, what would you say would throw someone into a depression state?
I would say
I
probably
have the 5 that are listed nationally. I want to know what your thoughts are.
okay. I'd say money trouble.
Okay.
I'd say death, just in general.
The death of a loved one. Okay.
Yes, death of a loved one.
That is one of them, by the way. That is number 1.
I'd say maybe health, a
Okay.
health downturn,
That's a good one.
and
You just looked at one of them.
pets.
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
The death of a pet?
Yes.
I could see that.
That's number 5.
That's number 5. Okay, that's
Mhm.
good.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe the last one, I'd say maybe just, I don't know, just general emotional distress,
Okay.
happenings in life.
Okay. Those are good. And those are the other 2 that I was going to mention. And I'll be specific. So number 1 will be the loss of a loved one. And that's just through old age, cancer, health issues. That's the number 1. Number 2 is someone that takes their own life. And then divorce.
Divorce. Yeah.
A job loss.
Uh-huh.
And then, of course, the pet. So now
with this
introduction
intro, let's go ahead, and I think it's time to be frank.
Thanks, Holly. So with the discussion that we've just had, what kind of funerals do you think? What is one funeral that you remember the most, and why?
One funeral I remember the most is probably the most recent, grandma's funeral.
Okay.
So my mom's mom passed away this past April or May.
Okay.
And so I'd say
remember. I don't remember.
It was earlier this year.
Okay. Yeah.
So a good couple months. I'd say that I remember that most just because it's fresh, but also she was someone very important in our lives.
Everyone's life.
Everyone's life, yes.
Yeah, in our family.
She had a big impact.
And what do you remember most about the funeral?
What I remember most is obviously mom's and my aunt and uncle's tributes and talks about her.
Was she cremated or buried?
She was buried. She was cremated?
Yes.
What?
Yes.
I did not know that.
Yeah. You saw everything on Zoom, right? Did you see a casket?
I thought I did, but maybe I made it up.
Mm-mm.
There was no casket.
Mm-mm.
Wow.
Yeah. So she was cremated. And so there are different ways in which we can celebrate a loved one's life. And they don't always have to be present.
Right.
But when they are present, there are some very funny things that can go on and take place. Uh-oh. And even when they're not present, it can still be comical if you're looking for the humorous side of things, which I tend to do sometimes, most times when it comes to funerals, just because I like to be able to laugh with the family after the fact. If they come back in and see me afterwards, I say, hey, that was really funny what you said at the funeral, or can you believe that guy tripped when he came into one of those things, and who was it that tripped, and how's he related to you?
Yeah.
And how are your legs working? So anyway,
he just brought shame on the entire family.
So anyway, the story I want to share with you today revolves around a young lady, and this is kind of a different one because I did not meet the family until the day of service.
Okay.
And the lady died outside of the state. I received a phone call that said to me, "Is this so-and-so?" And I said, "Yes." And they go, "Well, we have a sister that died, and we're going to put you in touch with the mortuary there, and they're going to make arrangements. They'll let you know when she's flying in." Well, I waited and I waited and I waited. Still nothing. I didn't know when she was coming into the state. And we've talked about common carriers and how individuals are transferred from state to state. Well, this one was coming through in a common carrier. So I was waiting and waiting and waiting. And so finally, what happened? I get a call from the airline.
The airline?
Yeah, from the warehouse saying, we have an individual here that's arrived from such and such, and we need to know when you're going to be by to bring her into your care. And I said,
And-
well, I've been waiting for the mortuary to call me.
Well, I guess now.
Yeah. I said, we'll do our best to get there as quickly as possible. So we did. And then I talked to the family again. They still hadn't arrived to the state. And they said, we would like to have the services at this church on this day at this time. Can you arrange that for us? Okay. So I started making some phone calls and found out who the minister was, talked to the minister, and went on ahead, and everything was set for the day of service, including flowers, their programs. And it's kind of it gets a little scary when someone doesn't meet with you face to face, because you don't know if you're doing everything they want you to do. You don't know if the colors of the flowers are right, if the arrangement's going to be right.
Right.
So I got to the church. I arrived there about the viewing was, I believe, set for 10 a.m. And I got to the church and was talking with the one of the hostesses there, and she was waiting by the door. And the family opted for a solid oak casket, which are heavy. The caskets are very heavy. And when I started to unload the casket, because I usually will go to services like that by myself, but they had no ramp. They had no ramp. And so I had to either back up close to the curb, which elevated the cart that the casket would be placed onto, which made it very difficult. You would have to go at almost a 36-degree angle in order to lift the casket up onto the
Right.
And then it made it very difficult to wheel the casket out of the car, even though there were rollers inside the car. So I was doing my best at getting it over the curb, and finally had to pull the car all the way forward, drop the lift down below, and then lift it physically up over the curb. Well, while I was doing that lift over the curb, one of the hosts of the church came out and said, "Can I help you?" And I said, "Yeah, if you would, if you'd get on that other end, we can both lift it over the curb." And he just stood there. And I looked at him, and I'm struggling getting the casket up my side up over the curb. And he still is just standing there. And then he asks once again, "Can I help you?"
What? Yeah.
And as I said before, yes.
Yes, in fact, you can.
Oh my gosh. Well, he never helped. He not over the curb. He only helped me guide the casket into the church. And I was, here I was struggling. I just thought to myself, what in the world are you doing? Can you see me struggling here? Anyway, we got the casket into the church, set it up, and opened the casket up. And there she was, waiting for the family to arrive. Family started to arrive, and I met the family who I had been speaking with over the phone, and they said, "Frank, everything looks beautiful."
Okay.
There's hurdle number one passed. So that was good. And so they spent their time up the casket. There was a group of 6 of them, all sisters, no brothers at all in this family. They were all just sisters, and they were all just huddled around the casket, and people started to arrive. And I met the minister, who was a small little, I think at the time he said he was right around 81 years old.
Wow.
But very nice. He was so kind and so accommodating to anything that I needed or that I had questions of. He was so willing to help in any way he could. And I could see why members of the church had asked him specifically to preside over and conduct the service, even though he had retired. When the services began, and at the time, the church holds probably 150, I would guess. And it was pretty full. I was quite amazed that for her coming in from out of state, family not being there, that they had that many people that had actually arrived at the services.
Right.
And so I thought, well, that's so nice. It was a huge tribute.
Yeah.
To this young lady that was in the casket. And young, I say, she was probably 48. And so I didn't get into the fact of how she died, because I wouldn't see the death certificate, because that was coming from another state.
Right.
So there's no way I would have known that. So the minister turns over to the associate pastor, or the pastor at the time, and he goes, and this is no kidding, I'm going to just kind of paraphrase as to how he started the service. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us today at this church at this particular hour in representing the life of our loved one.
This 81-year-old man?
No, his associate pastor.
Oh, okay.
Of our beloved. And then he gave the name. Thank you. Thank you all very much for being. And then there was a guitar and drum that went off, and some music was playing. And then he gave a small little message, and then he turned it over to this little 81-year-old man.
Uh-huh.
And he kind of the same thing, just with not as much exuberance, but was getting the crowd or the congregation together where they were all standing, clapping hands, waving their hands back and forth like a huge wave, like you'd see at a sporting event. And they were just waving. I was waiting for the cigarette lighters to come out of the cell phones.
Right.
I'm kidding. But it was really quite a touching and moving experience. And then at one moment, the minister just stops, the older gentleman, age 81. He starts to dab his forehead because he was sweating. Right. And he starts dabbing himself a lot. And he just reaches over and he hands the microphone over to the associate pastor. The associate pastor continues on. He steps off the stage.
Okay.
And he walks by the congregation. As he's walking by the congregation, he's reaching out and he's touching individuals as he's walking by. And so nothing else. He leaves the podium and goes to the back of the room. I didn't follow him or witness where he was going, but he just disappears to the back of the chapel.
Uh-huh.
The associate pastor keeps going on, and he's talking really not carnival. He's no longer yelling or screaming or bringing in an influctuation of his voice and bringing it on down and letting you know that, hey, we're still here, we're celebrating. And so anyway, he comes to a real quiet point of his message, and he's reading from scripture. And all of a sudden, we hear what seems to be a pipe break.
Oh.
And I'm looking around thinking to myself, what the world is that? And without any forewarning, he puts the microphone, the associate pastor puts the microphone on the podium, makes a mad dash to the back of the chapel, and we hear and he goes, "Pastor, your mic's still on."
Oh my gosh. Oh no. This poor old man.
So here he was in the restroom. Going to the restroom, and I forgot to mention that before he left, the associate pastor left the stage to rush to the back, we hear, oh man, that feels good. Oh, yeah. And I'm thinking to myself, what the world am I listening to? So anyway, the associate pastor goes right back up calmly.
Sure.
To the stage, he picks up the microphone, finishes his message, and then slow but sure, this pastor makes his way up to this podium, and he says, "I understand you probably heard a little more than you wanted to." Just a few minutes ago, he said, "Let me please accept my apologies," and then,
oh my god,
and then he says, "But my hands are clean."
My hands are clean. Don't worry. I turned the mic off for washing them, but I promise.
Oh my gosh! So anyway, he went on ahead. It didn't last much longer after that, just so you know. But the service lasted probably another 5 minutes, and we went up and final file by and closing. Everyone was not commenting on the deceased, but the pastor commenting to the pastor about, sorry about your microphone. Talk about the air being let out of a room.
Yeah.
And all of the attention now being addressed to something totally different that he didn't mean for it to go to. Wow.
Right. Oh no.
Oh my gosh. Oh, anyway.
Did you hear anything from the family? Were they upset about it?
Oh no, they weren't upset about it at all. Like I said, they love the pastor, and they just said, it's interesting that we all have instances in our lives where we just wish we had taken back what we either said. Unfortunately, his was broadcasted. That's what they said. Yeah. So it doesn't matter. She's sitting in the one sister said, "No, we love him and we're grateful that he took time out to be here with us." And yeah, totally acceptable and totally understandable. And they all gave him hugs, and he said, and then the one daughter said, "Well, I'll tell you what, this will be a memory I won't forget."
Yeah.
And I said, "Oh, because of your sister?" And she looks at me and smiles. No.
No, I don't think
I,
so.
I knew what she was talking about, and I think she knew what I was talking about. So
Right.
anyway, it
Oh
was
my
very interesting the way it
gosh.
all worked out. But everyone
How
left,
funny.
and then I had Paul Bears from the church. They came up to me and asked if they could help with the casket, putting the casket back in the car, which I was grateful for because I didn't want to. I would have waited till most everybody had left before I moved that casket if I didn't have help. So,
And at this
so
point, you're saying, okay, I'm probably not going to get help
yeah, I
because
didn't
of that
anticipate it.
experience in the beginning. Can I help you? Yes. Yes, you can.
Oh boy. And then for a moment I thought maybe he didn't understand the term yes. I don't know. I'm waiting. Do you want the
Oh
help?
my gosh.
So anyway, all wore Paul Bear gloves, and there was no. This was the part that I found most interesting with that service, besides the experience that I just shared with you,
Of course, yeah.
is that they all flew out of town and then allowed us to do the burial 3 days later, unattended.
Really?
No one was there. We just took the casket to the grave and then had the casket buried. And then I was to send photos to the sisters showing the casket on the gravesite, and once the gravesite was completed, so they could see what was going on. So anyway, that was another one of the funnier stories regarding church services. But if you had to think about it, is there anything memorable, any other memorable things that you may have seen in a funeral that you would feel comfortable sharing?
I mean,
Or any questions at all?
nothing like that. Nothing as funny or strange, I'll say, as that. Unprecedented. But
Yes.
I was thinking of just, okay, so we talked about the average age of someone that has a death, experiences a death.
Yeah.
And it's very young. And so you kind of have to be ready for that. So what do you recommend for someone who's just lost someone? Like, how do they even go about choosing a funeral home?
So I think that's a very important question. A lot of people will choose just because of either the family has used it before, the funeral home, and so they feel comfortable going back to that funeral home, or they go off of recommendations, or they also just go ahead and think of, well, who's been probably the most popular anymore today? If you really want to know who to use, a lot of people go to a specific, their website and then see reviews. And so
Oh, yeah.
reviews become very important to the industry right now, because if you have a lot of good reviews, and the family feels fairly confident that that's what they're going to get when they get to that mortuary, is
Right.
a good service, or at least attentive service. And so a lot of people need to know and understand that if you have your loved one at a mortuary and you go in and are not comfortable with that mortuary, you do not have to stay there.
Really?
You can call whoever you want. They are not obligated to keep your loved one with them. If you say, I want him changed or her changed to another funeral home, they will do that. They have to do that legally.
Yeah.
The individual is your loved one. And
Right.
so a lot of people will go to, and I get this, not a lot, but it's becoming more and more increasing, where people will have a loved one at a given mortuary and come to me and say, give me your pricing on such and such. So I give them the pricing, and their jaw drops and say, well, the competitor down the street or 2 blocks over, a mile away, their cost is almost 3 times as high as yours.
Right.
Doing the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And so they say, well, would you mind if we moved our loved one to your location? I said, no, that's strictly up to you. That's your decision. But you have to let the funeral home know. And I'm going to tell you right now that there could be an additional cost because you're moving it.
A transfer fee.
Or a holding fee.
Yeah.
So anyway, the thing that, and I do get very angry when they call and say, do you realize they're charging us $700 to move the body to move our loved one from this location to your location?
What?
Yeah, exactly right. And so
gosh.
I just said, well, what are you going to do? And he goes, well, we still come out ahead if we pay the $700 and use your services.
Yeah.
So that's the way families are beginning to think. And I don't know, it's kind of sad that we are our own worst enemies.
Right.
When it comes to the funeral industry. I don't
God.
understand why people can't just help people when they need the help.
Right. Yeah, because this is especially just one of the most vulnerable times
Hmm.
for a family,
It is. And
and you don't have any other options. Like, this has to be done.
right. And I think people understand that, at least in the industry. And I think that's where they got, I think that's where they got kind of caught
Yeah,
and showing their hand with regards to finances as opposed to service.
right.
And that is the sad thing. And I used to work with a guy when I first got into the industry who, depending upon what the family drove up in, would determine, would determine whether or not, because we were on commission at the first place I worked at, would
Right.
determine whether or not he was going to sit with the family or pass it on to someone else.
Oh my gosh.
Hmm.
That is the most skeevy thing I've ever
It
heard.
is. It is. And I have a
That's
story.
despicable.
I have a story specific to that, which will
Mhm.
blow your mind.
Oh
But
my gosh.
I will share that in another episode. But when he said that the first time, and this was probably my second day in that building, and I thought to myself, oh my gosh, that was totally foreign to me
Yeah,
for someone even thinking that way. And I just thought, well, geez, they need help. And
right.
he did, by the way, turn it away.
Oh my gosh, of
He
course.
he was the next online, because there were four of us. He was the
Uh-huh.
next in line to either accept or reject helping that family. And the next one, my manager Mike, he took him and went on ahead and helped the family. Nicest family ever,
Yeah,
but may not have driven up in the nicest vehicle.
right.
But we're very grateful for what we were able to do for them.
Right.
So
Oh
it's
my gosh.
yeah, it's sad to hear and see, but
How
yeah,
horrible.
do not feel like you're obligated to stay at a mortuary if you don't feel comfortable or if the pricing is wrong.
Yeah.
Just say,
So,
you can just say to them, hold on everything. We're going to make some phone calls.
right. So with transfer fees being ridiculous and probably more popular now that people are
Hmm.
understanding that they don't have to stay with one mortuary,
Right.
would you suggest, if in the traditional sense of maybe a grandmother or grandfather passing away where it's leading up to it, would you suggest calling before the death and getting price quotes from people?
Yes, I would. In fact, when you say a grandmother or grandfather, most of them have already considered it and have already talked about where they want to go. And
Oh,
so,
okay, yeah.
yeah, but if it's a young person that's passed away
Right.
or someone
There's no
that passed away tragically,
preparation you can do.
there was no forewarning, so there's no preparation onto what you wanted to have done. And so
Yeah.
they go ahead and they turn around and they just call who they've been recommended to.
Mhm.
And some of these recommendations, they just, oh my gosh, I'm just going to tell you, I have a hard time with some of them. I just do. And I just don't understand why we can do the exact same thing for almost $2,000 less, but yet they feel the need to, they feel like they're getting what they pay for. And
Oh, yeah, it's that whole idea that, well, if it's more expensive, it's better service.
that's right. And the
Mhm.
grandmother that you mentioned that just passed away,
Mhm.
one of her statements was, you get what you pay for. And my underbreath comment or return response to her was, not necessarily in the funeral industry.
Yeah.
Yeah, because but her favorite, if she has some nice things. She demanded things that she wanted the way that she wanted them done, the way she wanted them done. And
Yes,
she,
she
and,
did.
and she was willing to pay what she needed to pay.
Right.
So yes, you get what you pay for in my wife's mother's mind.
Mhm.
But in my mind, whenever I'd hear that, I'd just smile, and in my mind, in my mind, I would never say it to her. But in
Yeah,
my,
no, of course not.
but in my mind, I would say, yeah, unless you're in the funeral industry. And then
Ooh.
but it's interesting when she started to get sick, and it was evident that she was going to pass away, that I would get a call from her husband
Uh-huh.
and ask what the options are or what I would suggest he do, and he followed them to the letter. He made some
Wow.
phone calls. He thought he would use one facility and then called another one, and
Mhm.
the one that I had suggested, and found out such a discrepancy in pricing that he said, well, Frank, what's going on here? Why is this happening? And well, I don't know all the particulars in Colorado, but it's just,
Right.
I just told him some of the things that we've talked about right here. And he says, okay. He said, nothing's changed, right? It's not really. It's the services will be the same.
Yeah.
I mean, it
Well,
doesn't change the cremation process.
yeah. I think it might be helpful for you to just give a very brief outline of maybe what you told him. Like, okay,
Oh,
I have a loved one that's about to pass away. What are my next steps?
okay.
Or
So
what's going to happen even?
I asked him point blank what he wanted to do, and he mentioned cremation. I said, okay, have you thought of a facility? He said, yes. And I said, have you called them? And he said, no. And I said, I want you to, when we finish our conversation here, I want you to give them a call. Then I want you to call me back. You ask them what they will charge you for A, B, C, D. And I want you to
Mhm.
call me back, and I want you to go ahead and tell me what it is they told you. And I said, okay. He said, okay. So about 35 minutes later, I got to call back. And that's when my wife was involved and said, Frank, there's got to be something different we can do. And I said, I have a friend there. Let me call him real fast, and we'll just go ahead and see what he can suggest. So he gave the name of another one, and we looked it up on the internet. And from the price that he was originally given to this facility,
Mhm.
I think it was about $1,000 difference.
Oh my
And
gosh. With
yeah,
cremation too.
correct. No services that the mortuary would be involved in. It's just a matter of bringing the individual into their care, holding, cremating, getting the cremated remains back
Right.
to the family. And then the family could go ahead and do their own services.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was about $1,000 difference. And so of course, what did he do? He went with the more economical one. But
Yeah,
he
of
didn't
course.
realize that he could he thought that once he got information from the facility he wanted to use, that was the end of it.
Yeah.
And then just a
He's
simple
locked in at that point.
just a simple prod
Mhm.
or request to have him just call another facility or let me look into it, and I'll tell you who you should use that's close to you, that's probably more reasonable.
Mhm.
Then yeah, that's exactly the process that we went through. And so very grateful to have everything done and taken care of in a timely manner, which is what happened. And
Right.
usually cremations will take between 7 to 12 days
Mhm.
when they get all the paperwork together, because every state is different. I don't know what the quality or the obligations are in Colorado, but most places will require at least 51% of the surviving next of kin to sign cremation orders. And so it
Mhm.
takes a little while to track them down. Doctors have to sign the death certificate. Nothing happens without
Right,
a signed
right.
death certificate. So everything takes time.
Yeah. And with that, same motif of time, what because I know you have crazy stories about this,
Mm-hmm.
but what is the reasonable amount of time if, say, my loved one dies right here, they died in their home,
Mm-hmm.
and when do I call? Like, is there a legal aspect to that where you have to call and you have to get them removed from the home, or do you have time to say, okay, let's figure things out first? Because that's just a very traumatic thing. And I don't think a lot of people are really thinking about it at that point.
Okay, a good question. If let's use your scenario where someone passes away at home. If
Hmm.
someone passes away at home, it's probably an expected death,
Right.
and so that means they're probably under hospice care.
Okay.
And so when hospice is involved, all you need to really do is let hospice know which mortuary you'd like to have notified once the death occurs.
Okay. And
And
then hospice takes care of it.
that's correct. Now, if you haven't made that decision prior to the passing, then I have had individuals call me, even if they're under hospice care. I've had individuals call me from the family. The hospice will say, hey, Frank, we're ready for you to come to the house and bring Mrs. So-and-so into your care. And I said, okay, great. So we'll be on our way. And then I just immediately make just one simple call to the family, because they've given me their phone number, hospice has,
Right. Right.
and so who the next of kin is. And so I just, out of respect, say, hey, we are on our way to the home and we should be there within 35 to 40 minutes. And so at that point, and this happens a lot, saying, oh my gosh, can you wait a minute? Because we have family coming in from another city and they want to see her before you take her or
Sure.
him. And say,
Uh-huh.
okay, you give me a time frame. So we got a call once where an individual had passed away. I'm going to guess at 6 a.m.
Uh-huh.
And after talking with the family, they didn't want her picked up until midnight. And so I said, yeah, no problem. We'll schedule it in and we'll be there right at midnight.
Mm-hmm.
And so we go right to the house at midnight. And then the family says, can you give us an additional half hour?
Oh
And
gosh.
you just think, I'm already tired, right?
Yeah.
I'm already tired, but no, yeah, fine. That no, great.
Sure.
Yeah, spend what time you need.
Do you have a couch I can wait on?
We do, but she's using it right now.
Oh no. I'll pass.
No, but anyway, but yeah, we get requests like that. Not all the time, but it's probably 20% of the time.
Yeah.
Where people will request, unless they die in a hospital, then the hospital, and they have a morgue, will actually allow the family to spend what time they need in the room. Then they'll usher them to their cars or ask them to leave the hospital. Then they prepare the individual and transport them to the morgue, where the mortuary will then take possession or care of the body from there.
Right.
There are some hospitals in this area, which is odd. You'll find this odd, that don't even have morgues.
What?
Yes, that's what I said. What? Yeah, there's 2 in my area right here that I could name right off the top of my head that you have to pick up from the room.
Oh
They don't have a morgue, or they have what's called a cold area, and the cold area only cools to 50 degrees.
Oh,
so it's still not it. So they always say, yes, they have the hospital. This is the funniest thing. The hospital calls, yeah, she has passed away. We're just wondering what your ETA is, or what time do you think you'll be here? And and then my next question is, do you have a morgue? And if they say no, okay, well then we'll be there within the hour.
Okay, I'm on my way. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Oh, it is interesting though when people are start talking and you start thinking about it. The one problem that most people will have is that they don't think about it.
Yeah.
And they don't think about either cost, location, ability to be served or handle what it is you've specifically requested have happen.
Right.
So it's, there's a lot of different factors, but yeah, if people would just take their time to actually talk amongst themselves just a little bit, do some research, you'll find the mortuary that's best for you.
Yeah.
And that's the key right there. The best for you, not necessarily in cost. You want what's best for you. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Right. No, I was just going to say, and I think it's just worth saying that, it does, when a death happens, it does become very frantic and it feels like everyone's kind of frazzled. Okay, what happens now? What do we do? What do we do? And it is worth saying, just take a breath, take a moment to talk about it amongst yourselves and not feel pressured.
Right.
But actually consider all of the options and then just, like you said, choose what's best for you.
Yeah, I agree. And that's the best thing you could do, not only for yourself, your family, but also for your loved one.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Because you don't want them going to some place where you're not really sure about what's happening.
Yeah. Not comfortable with it. Yeah. Give them the best send off that you can. And well, I think that's great. I think that kind of covers all of our bases for today's episode.
Thanks, Holly.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for joining us again.
I have one last comment, Holly.
Great.
When you finish, make sure your mic is off.
Remove the mic, do whatever you need to. Oh, gosh.
Oh, my word. Well, let us know. Go ahead, Holly.
Yes, of course. Thank you, everyone, for listening in to another episode. Be sure to like, share, subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at Coffin Talkin'. If you have any stories like we featured in the last episode, please email us at letsbefrank@coffintalkin.com. But thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.